1, 2, 3. Hello and welcome to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show, exclusive interviews series. And our special guest for tonight, the voice of Nightcrawler and many other things, Adrian Hough.
Hey, hello everybody.
Yeah, good to have you, Adrian. And I see Davan figured out how to pronounce your name correctly.
Yes, he did. Very
I was
good. And it was
I was doing it right the whole time.
Really?
So
the whole time.
yeah, it was the whole time.
Excellent. Well, good. That's good to hear.
No, in Canada and the States, it's like ho, hey, how, who, Hugh. I'm like, but in England, if you're from like those islands, usually you get it. Except once in Scotland, I think in Glasgow, someone said Mr. Hoch, because they have something called a Hoch joint, which is like the hip of, like it's a meal made from like the hip of a sheep.
Right.
So,
Yes, I think I remember. I didn't have it when I was there, but I remember. I think I've seen that on the menu because I thought it was interesting. I'm glad I didn't try it now.
What? You don't think that sounds delicious, eh?
Well, I did haggis when I was there. That was fun. So
haggis is good.
I liked it. It was surprisingly. It just looked like. It just tasted and kind of looked like hamburger, or not hamburger. Sorry, like sausage, like not in a casing, but like when you have sausage and something else.
Right.
That's all really sort of consistency and kind of tastes like. It was good. Yeah.
Well, Andre, you want to explain how we do things here?
Sure. Well, welcome, Adrian. Very happy to have you here. Generally, the way this works is I have another show where I interview like people that do, like yourself and other people that do comics and stuff. And Davan generally is. So I ask you questions about your life and your career leading up to this point. And Davan usually asks you questions that are random Davan questions, we call them, which are usually related to X-Men or some other thing that he may have be interested in asking you. I have no idea what he's going to ask, so but generally they're usually X-Men related. Yes.
At times.
Cool. Well, I guess I will start then. So where were you born? Where did you start?
I was born in Toronto, or Toronto, as we like to say.
Toronto.
Years and years and years ago, before anything ever happened. It was like way at the beginning. But yeah, I was born in Toronto, lived downtown Toronto. I was at 11. I got into these. They had Saturday morning classes, and one of the things they were offering were mime and creative drama. And having been kicked out of the choir at the age of 8, I wanted to perform, but I didn't want to open my mouth. So the mime seemed really good.
What were you kicked out of the choir for?
I don't know. But
you know what? I think we have a lot in common. I was kicked out of a vocal ensemble.
Oh, really?
How about that? And the choir, actually.
Yeah, I was 8 when teachers were mean and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so I got into these classes, and then and then a couple of years later, I sort of graduated out. But the teacher said, "Come back and be my assistant," because apparently, according to him, I arrived the first day. Now he just used mime as like a warm up. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I would, like, for me, it was like this magic, I can create something invisible. and I would be lost in the corner. Like, most of my school, report card said he's a bit of a daydreamer. Anyway, so
perfect for an actor.
That's right. And then finally, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I just thought, I'm going to go to England. I'm going to be a classical actor like all my favorite actors. And so that's sort of what I did.
Who were the favorite actors that inspired you to go to England?
Oh, my God. There was Kate Nelligan. There was Patrick Stewart, way
of
back.
Course. Classic.
Yeah, but that was before he was so Patrick,
Oh, yes.
And was it Derek Jacobi who did this thing called, and I think Jeremy Irons as well. Anyway, I said, that's the kind of actor I want to be in. Like, I'm coming in from Toronto, okay? And so I spent, and I spent 10 years in the UK, and I was like learning dialects and just sort of feeding myself with this stuff, and that was, it was a great decade. And then I kind of,
you just joined like a theater group, or were you in school there?
I went to a drama school there.
Excellent.
And it was a 1-year course. And then, most of what I learned was kind of afterwards, sort of just, working on plays for free, doing little bits and pieces here, having lots of different jobs and whatnot in London. And, but just like trying to hone all these accents. That was my, my obsession. And so when I came back from there, I had, I was cast in English things, and I was, and I did a Norwegian accent. I had a German accent, which is, sort of how I ended up being called in for my very first animated audition.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, even just glancing at your IMDb, whenever we have some of the whenever there's a character on the show that generally is a new character, sometimes I will glance through their IMDb, and there's always some very mainstay Canadian things that always show up on almost everybody that's been a voice actor on this show. There's like Street Legal shows up almost every time. Forever Night, ENG, Rhode Avonlea often is in there. So anything that's like a deeply Canadian show is generally, we will see them pop up. But I did see that you did some heritage minutes, which I think is probably the most Canadian thing you could have done. So
it was
which one? I didn't.
The Paris Crew. It was about the rowing team.
That one. Yeah.
With the gunshot, with the shoot up. Yeah.
Right. And I was the captain of the British rowing team. And so I was terribly upset.
I remember that so well now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like where I grew up, we're both in Nova Scotia. I don't know if Davan filled you in, but I grew up in a very small community, like far from Halifax, like about 3 hours away. So, I only had 2 channels, which were CTV and CBC. It might have been ATV at the time. I can't remember. But so literally I've seen all of those like 1,000 times, because if you watch TV, you're just the same thing over and over again.
It was fun to do, though. They trained us in rowing, and we learned how to catch crabs, which is what you're not supposed to do when you're rowing. That's when the oar gets caught in the water.
Right. I always kind of assumed those were taken from movies or something, because a few of them, like I think the Avril Arrow one and a few others I recognize being from TV movies that CBC did. So I kind of assumed they all were. I didn't realize that a few of them were just sort of staged. I guess it makes sense, because some of them seem really self-contained.
I think they turned the Avril Arrow one into a full-blown thing, though.
I think Dan Aykroyd was in it. I remember the TV movie, but whenever, it must have been near the tail end of when they stopped doing the heritage minutes.
Well, they started doing them again, but I think they're like direct to internet now, maybe. But
that's so cool that they're still
ones.
Living.
I did want to ask you about the accents, though, because I did notice, like, obviously you played Nightcrawler. I noticed a lot of British roles, of Russian. Was that a thing you wanted to do, or you didn't realize you had a knack for it?
Well, no, I didn't have a knack for it, but I kind of made myself have a knack for it. I kind of hacked into whatever that thing is in our brain and, our expressive system, because I wanted to do that, right? I wanted to be a British actor, And so I spent a year in London sounding terrible, like just like the worst something just off the coast of Iceland, mid-Atlantic thing. But about a year after that, I was in Italy, and we'd been robbed. My partner at the time, and I went to the airport, and because I was told over the phone, well, you just go to the airport and they'll give you a ticket because you're on the flight, and they wouldn't give me a ticket. And I'd been speaking in an English accent, and my partner was very, very British. And I, honest to God, I turned into, Faulty Towers right there. And I was panicked, and I was affronted and all that. Yeah. I just sort of, look, we were told that. Anyway, so the man at the counter went away to get us a ticket.
Yeah.
I turned to my partner and said, how did I sound? Very English.
Oh, very good.
I like that Basil Fawlty is the default.
Yeah.
But that's when I realized that I'd kind of got there because I lost my temper in the accent.
You kind of lost yourself in it.
Yeah.
The dialects is always fun, and but the one thing, oh god, I lost what I was going to say. Oh yes, it's rare that you see it's so common to see English actors portraying North American accents, mostly Americans, of course. But it's rare to see the other way, to see anyone that's not from England doing an English accent.
Yeah.
Every once in a while it pops up. I mean, you get Robert Downey Jr.'s and your Sherlock Holmes and whatnot, but it's fairly rare to see it flip-flop the other way, which is I always found fairly interesting in the sort of incidents. So.
Yeah, the British Isles, they're small, and like you can, in the old days, you used to be able to go 5 miles and the accent would change, and then another 5 miles the other way and it was slightly different, and then suddenly it was like a completely other thing. I remember the first time I heard an accent in Newcastle, which is Geordie, which I don't do. I don't. It sounded like a foreign language, and my grandfather was taking me to the horse races or something when I was a kid. Anyway, so it was yeah, but the accents are so jam-packed close together that everyone adjusts their accent, and it becomes a part of the culture to, as an actor, to go, oh, it's no big deal, it's just part of the job, isn't it? So
yeah, I did a little movie. I do some acting as well here, whatever's available, kind of thing. I'm in the union and stuff. So, but there was a small role that I did a while ago. I had to do an Irish accent, and it was just like a little tiny thing, and I struggled with it. I figured out a mnemonic device, I think, internally, that I could just say to myself to guilt the lilt back. Because sometimes you can kind of lose. I mean, you would probably understand, but you kind of lose it if you think about it too much.
Yeah.
But I feel like once you say something a few times, that kind of covers a lot of the inflection with the voice.
Right.
It sticks for a while. So I found that was helpful. And Irish is probably one of the easier ones to ape if you don't have a lot of experience doing dialects. So.
I suppose, yeah.
If you live here, you can just do a Newfoundland accent. Or
kind of, but it's nowhere near as upbeat as that one is. It's like a sad Newfoundlander accent.
Do
you do a Newfoundland accent, Adrian?
I'm not touching that one on this podcast.
No.
I've been playing with it, but it's not there yet, and I'm kind of fussy, and so I don't want to.
No, that's very respectable that you're that dedicated to the craft that you don't want to betray the good people of Newfoundland by betting.
That's not a good Newfie accent, but that's terrible,
It's very high. It's like, and then it goes down and then high. It's just very funny. Yeah, because I have many hats I wear, and one is I'm a professional wrestler, and I did shows in Newfoundland for tours for several years. So I go up for like a week every few months, and then so I got to get to know the place quite well, even Labrador as well, and. So hearing the accent, what I find so interesting about Newfoundland is that there'll be a guy that has the thickest Newfoundland accent you could possibly imagine. And then another guy that was on the tour that grew up across the street from him that has no accent whatsoever. It just depends on who's around them, I guess, in their family. And
family thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of amazing in that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll come back to this one. So were your parents supportive of a career in the arts?
My parents were not supportive.
Okay.
I think they
didn't actively try to stop you.
Well, no, they never, they were, I can't tell this about my mom because she's still with us.
Oh no.
But no, I think my mother.
5 years, Mom? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, my mother worried about me for years, as rightly she should, because having an acting career is tough.
Oh, yes.
And lots of times when you're doing other jobs, or when how am I going to make the rent or the mortgage or whatever this month? And okay, kids, it's macaroni and cheese this month. Dad is going to do a play,
Yeah.
Because I'm here. But I think that my mother wanted me to be a social worker. I think
it's a very specific career path.
She knows the story. But I remember the day from which I never heard that from her again. And that was at the BAFTA Awards when I had been nominated, like about 10 years ago. And I'd been being an actor for 30 years. And it was always, well, you could always go back to school. And I'm sorry. But I'm a lifer, I'm kind of hooked on it. I love the craft. I love playing, and it's like I need to do it. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate that I have managed to, mostly feed my kids and be a dad and, live in a house that I own, along with the bank. And, but it's, it's a tough life. So, what was the question?
No, just if your parents were supportive of your career in the arts.
My father was a brilliant man. He is a landscape architect, and they have Michael Hough, who designed the Islands of Ontario place and lots of places around Toronto.
Oh wow, cool.
And but he was, a man in his study. That was where he was alive. He would be writing. People write, but his students loved him. He was, he would give, incredible talks on how to make cities sustainable and all this kind of stuff, way back before it became, something that we're all talking about now.
Oh my God, I'm a sustainable landscaper. So if you want to talk about that for like another hour, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm like the only one here. I've been doing it for 15 years, and I'm just like, hey, sustainability, and everyone's just like, monoculture lawns. I'm like, no, but like, hey, me over here. But
back in the 60s, 70s, my parents' house in Toronto, which they bought so cheap when you think about what they are now.
Oh God, it's insane. It's insane. Even people that bought a house 10 years ago to what they are now, it's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It was the only house on which the front lawn was had tomatoes. Like it was just like food. It was a food garden.
Yeah.
An apple tree on the little patch in front. And just behind that, the front porch had become a greenhouse. So
that's awesome.
Sounds like my yard.
I'm working on a plan to figure out how to do that with my place. We bought a house a few years ago, and I'm sick of mowing lawns. I'd rather have something that's.
Man, invite me over.
Any day,
I'll fix it for you. That's what I do.
Cool. Well, so your folks, like you did your mother in an accent, or they weren't from Canada originally, or is this just the?
They were British expats.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Father was born in France.
Well, I wondered how you would have such a knowledge of English actors, right? If there wasn't someone that was perhaps exposing you to that at a young age.
Right. Well, we were watching Masterpiece Theater when I was a kid.
Oh, wow, excellent.
Alistair, what was it called? Alistair.
Oh yeah, Smythe.
Sims?
No, not Smythe. That's somebody else.
Welcome to Masterpiece Theater.
Yeah, I remember the name. It was Alistair something, but
I used to watch that too. I didn't know what I was watching. I was very young.
Yeah, I was like, what would a young child be exposed to Patrick Stewart in American television that early on?
It was way back in.
It's the movie Life Force, maybe the Toby Hooper movie.
Oh no! Oh my God. He was in Life Force?
Oh yes, very briefly.
Gosh.
Yeah.
No,
check it out. He's got a pretty memorable scene actually, somewhere near the middle.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, no, I have to go back and look at it now.
Yeah.
Derek Jacobi's Hamlet, which the BBC put out.
Oh wow.
Patrick Stewart played Claudius, the uncle in it.
Oh wow, that would have been really cool.
Probably really young, and I think he played it again later. Anyway, I got to work with Patrick Stewart for a day on X-Men, the
Last
Three.
Stand. Yeah.
Right.
That must have
Jean
been
Grey's
incredible.
father.
Yes, Jean Grey's dad.
I wanted to ask you about that actually. So, did you have to audition for that role, or were they looking to cast somebody from the cartoon? Because I noticed that George Buza was in the first movie. I was wondering if they were just trying to drop a animated series guy into every movie.
I don't know. If it was because of that, I'd be upset. Because
the
thing that I apologize to George Buza. I saw him like a number of months ago, but I used to say, well, I'm the only actor who did both the animated series and the movies. And of course, George is like, okay.
Just sitting there. He won't correct you either. He's too nice.
Someone corrected me, and I was, like I felt like I had. There's always
just drops a beastism on you.
Yeah, he's the truck driver that drops Jean Grey or Rogoff in the.
That's right. Yeah. No, I taped for that. Actually, Alistair Cook. Well done.
Thanks, Ryan. Oh, Ryan's a top X guru.
Thank you, Ryan.
He's always hooking us up.
He's a good fan.
Mm-hmm.
No, like in those days, we went into the room and like you had like one had like 1 or 2 pages, only a few times, and they wouldn't give them to you. They wouldn't email. They wouldn't send them to you.
You had to do it right in the room
and stuff. And I went in the room like 10, 15 minutes early. I looked. I don't have to learn very much here. And then I remember the one thought I had about him is he's disgusted with his child, or terrified of, or a combination of the two. Then I went, okay, what to do? So I went in there. I basically did one take, and and then I can't remember what the line is. What about her illness? And so I kind of like did a little squirmy thing inside, and then I months later I got it, and I remember I get there on set, and like all the producers and the director and everyone is like there, and I'm like, I figure I've got like a 1-day part, maybe a 2-day part, and no, but they're looking at me and said, "Do you remember what you did in the audition?" This is months later. I went, I think so, and they said, "Go find his audition." And so they come on, some minion goes out and gets the tape, and
scouring through tapes of auditions to find yours.
Right. And they very quickly bring it back and they stick it in, and it's like, there it is. And I went, oh, okay, that's sort of what I remember doing. Great, okay, thanks. And then I swear I did about 35 takes of that single line or the other. And I remember like the director, oh God, what's his name?
Brett Ratner.
Oh,
yeah.
He liked to do lots and lots of takes. And I remember Ian McKellen is sitting opposite me, and then Patrick is over there. And it's like, it's my turn, right? And I remember going, and I swear we've done 15 takes at this point. And Brett says, yeah, just one more. Can you just do one more take? And I go, okay, yeah, okay. And I look over at Ian, and he goes,
indicating 5 more takes.
Exactly.
5 more coming.
Yeah. And
that must have been interesting, because they were there, but they did all the de-aging on them, right, for the final scene.
Yeah.
Were they like all marked up and stuff, or is that?
I think they did a different process for it. They just they might have had some makeup or something on. A while ago now, but they did the de-aging afterwards.
Right. Yeah, cool.
But
is that something that happens often, where they just want you to nail your audition again? Like
that's usually what gets you the role, right?
Right? Especially one where you've got a few lines and they're looking for a certain thing.
It's nice when you do it that way. I find like a lot of the modern auditions, it's just sending a tape in, and I kind of feel like it doesn't show your range if they ask, because at least when you do it in person, they can ask you to do it a different way, and then you can correct it. They can see that you're malleable and that you can change your performance.
Right. Well, I live on an island, so I love self tapes, but now everyone's doing them. It kind of changes the dynamic. It's like, oh, we also have this tape of Adrian Hough. It's just like everybody, and they're just kind of swiping through them a lot of the time. So you send your best first 5.5 seconds. That's the trick now.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Although out here, most of the productions seem to be like many of the roles for locals aren't usually huge, so it's still cool, like they're out there. But what was Canadian Bacon like? I have to ask this just because it was a movie that I have a deep, like most Canadians have a deep reverence for. I think I got to go back and watch it again. It's been many years, and I remember when as a younger man finding it hilarious, and I feel like I probably would still feel the same way. But
well, it was Michael Moore had done Roger and Me and won the Oscar, and then they said, here's a great DOP and here's a lot of money, just go and make this comedy. And
I always forget he did that movie.
Yeah.
He went on to do so much other stuff.
Anyway, I was the reader for the auditions, right?
Oh, really?
brought me in to be the reader, and so I'm there, and you know, Michael is asking for all these Canadian chocolate bars and stuff like that. I mean, very, you know, entertaining. And then at one point he kind of looks at me and goes, "So, do you want to play a part in that?" And I'd been spying, you know, like watching. Yeah, I'd like to play what about the Russian aide? And he goes, "Okay, do it for us." And so I pulled out my Russian accent, which, you know, was ready. And I think there's only like one or two lines. I think there was two lines that they cut down to one on the day. And all I said was VH1. That was it.
But what a delivery. What a delivery.
Yeah. Nailed the Russian accent.
The whole thing was the Russian president, the American president, which I think was Alan Alda, and there's Rip Torn there, and was bringing the Russians into Camp David to kind of, let's see, maybe we can mix it up a little bit, you know. And the Russian president, why should we do? We have all these great things now. We got I'm like eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and this 19-hour day, and 12 hours of it was just me eating chicken. And at the time, I didn't know that you should probably spit it out.
Yeah.
And about 5 hours in, like, it was the chicken just was like rubber and sand in my mouth, and like the taste, my brain said, I can't taste anything now. But it was fun to do, you know.
Yeah, don't they always caution about that in film acting, is to take small bites or try not to eat at all if possible, because, you know, if you're doing the 17 takes and you're eating every time, it gets pretty rough.
Yeah. But I did get a laugh. I saw it at the film festival, and you know, I got an audible laugh, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was nice.
I still think one of the best Canadian jokes ever in a film is when they have the van covered in graffiti that's like, you know, "Screw you, Canada" and all that, and they drive to Quebec, and the cop pulls them over and makes them turn because they're a bilingual province, makes them turn everything turn it into French, and they're like conjugating the verbs. It reminded me of Monty Python and the Life of Brian, where they're these, you know, fixing all of his error mistakes on the graffiti on the wall. It's just so good.
It was great.
So good. So how did X-Men come about?
The animated series?
Yeah.
I just moved with a new agent who was coupled up with a voice agent, and I was introduced, and I said, what can you do accents and stuff like that? Sure. And I sort of pulled out a few accents for her, and then it's my very first animated audition, right? And they sent me off to it and said, well, it's a German character. I went, okay. So you get there, and they give you the sides, and I read it and I heard it, and it's just one of those kind of fortunate, you know, meant to be connections. I knew, and I didn't like, I did it as an acting exercise rather than an animated thing, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't ask any questions, just went in there, and it just the script was such that it just took off out of my mouth, and it was just this wonderful feeling of everything like firing at once. And the voice director, there's this pause, and he goes, "He's a very passionate guy, isn't he?" And I went, "Yeah." More time, so I did. And then that was, you know, the next thing I know, I was in a booth with Cal Dodd and Lenore Zan and Norm, and it was, you know, a big party, you know. And that was when I figured out, like, when I watched Cal do what he did in the booth, like, voice acting is not just like you're not like this, just blah blah blah, right? Like he like did this whole thing with his body, and he'd make fists, and as if now listen here, Bob. And I was like, oh wow, okay. So I just, you know, I just took all my notes from him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it'd be freeing. I mean, you kind of, I feel like there's more to voice than just the voice itself. There's the action that's going on while you're doing the thing.
You know, and in that show, the emotional story too, you know, like the characters' relationships, and you know, it's and how deeply they feel about things, and what it's like to be in that situation as an outsider. And you know,
when we reviewed that episode, we had a long discussion about it was kind of the first character in the series that sort of showed up with an ideology more than just the standard like racism's bad. It you know, and or the idea that it's rare in kids cartoons, unless they were Christian cartoons, to see a Christian character so deeply represented that holds to their ideals the way that particular character did.
Yeah, I think
it's very interesting and kind of jarring to see it for the first time after a long time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, apparently he's the first openly, Christian character that had ever been portrayed on his, well, except for Davy and Goliath, right? I mean,
that was a kid show. That was a Christian show. Like, it was designed to be that from the beginning, like Veggie Tales or any of those other shows that are starting to do the same thing now. Like it's so surreal to say that in a sentence and make it be true. Like, that showed the Christian vegetables. You know that one?
Yes, I do.
Anyway, David, I've been hogging them. You go ahead.
Oh, well, were you familiar at all with the character going in, or like
no.
Nothing.
You weren't a comic guy?
I wasn't a comic guy. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, it's fine.
No. A lot of people aren't.
Whatever brings you to the world is
exactly right. I wasn't a video game guy when I got Assassin's Creed 3 either. It was just kind of like it was sold to the actors as a miniseries shooting in Montreal, and so
really?
Playing the part but we did it as like motion performance captured, so that everything is like the character does in the cutscenes was basically us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. That's gonna be such a I do play video games, not a ton, but there are these horror games that I like. A recent one was called The Quarry, which is like it's one of these ones where it's like it's kind of like you're playing a movie and you have to make the decisions. There's a few real-time buttons you hit to make things go. Pardon?
I'm already scared. I don't play
it. But they have real actors you recognize. The previous version by the same guys called Until Dawn. And Rami Malek was in that, and like the girl that played the cheerleader in Heroes, and like a bunch of people. And in this new one, Justice, I can't remember the guy from Detective Pikachu, Justice something, and a bunch of other actors I recognize are in this one too. So like, and you watch the scenes of them doing that motion capture acting with all the cameras and the dots and the running around. That must have been quite the experience.
Yeah, it was. It was when they told me I had the job in the room, and I was like,
oh wow, that's rare.
Well, it's weird too, right?
Yeah.
Like it was the callback, right? The first audition is just on tape with the casting director, and I had like 2 or 3 scenes, and I did them, and I thought I hit all the beats I wanted to hit, and then the callback was with these, and I looked them up on the internet, and I couldn't find their name in the IMDb, and I was going, it's a little sus. And then I thought, okay, they could get a name actor. They could get Jeremy Irons, or they could get, what's his name? He just died. Julian Sands,
Oh, right. Yeah.
I thought, but if they are serious about calling me in, I'm going to give her, And so, and then, and then I got this whole speech to learn the night before. And of course, I had little kids at the time, so I had to put them all to bed, and prepare. And then I learned the heck out of the speech, in which he's kind of raging. We had a dream, Benjamin, I think it was the thing. And I just like, it was like, And so I walked into the room and I thought, all right, if they're serious about casting me, maybe I'm just going to give it everything I've got. Probably won't get it. Anyway, I remember just at the end of the audition, sort of having this feeling of like shaking after that speech, and so dramatic. And there's that little quiet thing, and then they said, "We want you to do this." And I went, "Really? Do you know what this is? Miniseries shooting in Montreal?" And they sort of gestured me toward the table where there's this like stack of non-disclosure agreement. And like, I think by page 3, I'd given away my left kidney and my firstborn child.
Hopefully you'll see him again someday.
I signed it. And so they got Assassin's Creed 3 with this kind of deep kind of, reverence to it. I was like, oh, okay. Video game. Oh.
Huge
okay.
one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like I was so like my reaction was so like not a gamer, right?
Yeah.
But that between that and the the release of the game was about a year and a half, and I didn't tell anybody nothing, because like my left kidney, my firstborn, and but I remember when the game came out. During the shooting, I was just like, no, I'm going to shoot this like a movie. And so we were like figuring out the blocking and the tone and the pitch, like what, emotional level to pitch things at. And I got to work with some fantastic actors, like Noah as well, who played Connor, the main character. And I just remember when the game came out, it just suddenly, had been mine, ours, and mine. And then when the game came out, suddenly it was like, no, it belongs to other people. There were like Hatham Kenway profiles coming up on Facebook. Mm-hmm. All of them had more followers than me. Like it was crazy. Like, and it was like out of my hands, and people were writing fan fiction and like, shipping and stuff like that, and weird stuff. and it was the most extraordinary experience, to have that happen to something which had been mine for so long, that I had got the chance to work on and develop for so long. But that was fun, and then it ended up with this kind of bizarre nomination, which for the BAFTA Games Awards, which was very exciting for about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Over, and then you carry on,
Well, that's interesting. Did you see the movie Tar, the one with Kate Blanchett?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So like, I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone. I guess it's not less.
That's what we do here. Come on. Now.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But the idea, like when she has to sort of fall from grace, and then she's sort of reduced to doing video game scores, yes. and at the end of the movie, where you sort of see what she's doing, it's sort of meant. It's weird because I read some follow-up, like sort of critiquing of it, and someone was saying that like some people don't understand how big the video game world is. And that like doing that, like it's honestly not like if you mean to see that as like her falling from grace and not really being successful anymore, it's like doing those games. Some of those games are equally as like high on a certain level, because there are millions, hundreds of millions of people who play video games. Like those games become huge, and especially the Assassin's Creed ones. Like it's to a level that's like that the average person that's not really in that world. I mean, I play the occasional game, but I'm not like an avid gamer. It's a whole other world that people don't understand unless you're in it.
Yeah, a whole other world.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean the game made in 6 months, it made almost $1 billion, and that was on movies weren't doing that 10 years ago.
They're barely doing that now, so. Unless they're an Avengers movie or something, but anyway, Davan.
Well, speaking of Avengers movies type thing, did you happen to see the Nightcrawler portrayals in the live action movies?
Alan Cumming. I thought he was.
Yeah, because
I haven't seen. Oh, then there's the younger ones, right? And the later.
There's the younger one.
I thought that
Cody McPhee. Is it
Cody? Yeah, the kid from the road, Cody something. Yeah. Cody Smith McPhee, that's it.
Yeah.
The one I paid attention to was Alan Cumming, because it was the first time that he saw it. I thought he was just terrific. It looked very uncomfortable to be under all that blue makeup.
Yeah. Did you critique the accent while watching it?
I thought I nailed it. It's funny because I know that now people have said this to me. I don't know if I buy it, but that Hugh Jackman would listen to Cal Dodd's portrayal to get his version, right?
Really?
And someone put it to me, and I shouldn't even be saying this, but I don't, because I don't know if I believe it or not, that Alan Cumming might have extrapolated from the animated character.
I could see it. I could totally
Good.
see
I was going to try to lead you there anyway, so I'm glad you did so.
Somebody else already did, thankfully. They opened the door.
I got to do
it. Yeah.
No,
that was a very influential show in the X-Men world. It really was. It's carried on through the movies and comics and subsequent cartoons, and it's pretty much the biggest thing X-Men that there ever was.
Well, when those movies came out, there was nothing else that was a video or of X-Men, really. So, like, if you were going from something else to base a character on, you just had to find it through the books. But that was the only thing that was really there, that had voices, that had, that you could learn from. So I can totally see why they all would watch that show and learn from it. I mean, you'd have to. Well, there's nothing else there to do, really.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, 30 years ago, we did not know. Just thought, oh, it's interesting. It's a job. It's a gig, you know.
Well, has the endurance of this like surprised you? Like as the years of like, I guess at what point did you realize that this was like a cult thing that you're probably going to be doing at cons for the rest of your life?
Cons. I haven't done that many cons actually. I've done a few. I did a few when Assassin's Creed came out. There's lots of people who kind of are more con attracted than me. But yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of neat. It's like when you go, oh crap, I've been an actor for 40 years, and look,
How did you look at that?
How did that happen? You know, because it's just mostly it's like you're just like going job to job, and occasionally get something which sort of takes you for a year or two, and you go, oh, okay, this is it, and then I'm a series regular and such, and then it's over, and then you're back to the drawing board, and so like your career is in the past, like the present is always what's next, you know. So, but it's really neat. It is neat to see something that was just like a moment years ago, and for the other cast, the rest of the cast who were like in like seasons of it. I was in like 2 episodes. Those that were in seasons of it, I think it must be very rewarding. I mean, Lenore, who was a politician for all those years, is now like,
she was I live in Truro, Nova Scotia. She was our MLA. So yeah. So she gave the commencement speech when my now wife, girlfriend at the time, graduated from college. I remember sitting there listening to her talk, and all I could hear was the voice. Like, she wasn't obviously doing the accent and everything, but I could hear it immediately, and it was like so surreal to sit there and listen to Rogue give a speech. So.
But she, we had a little reunion in Birmingham, Alabama, and we'd do like little dinners, and everyone was sort of Lenore and I were like talking politics.
No, excellent.
We're both environmentalists, and
yeah, I respect it.
You want to talk about old growth forests? Because I do.
Well, all these. One of the things about being an actor is you have like this spare time, and because of my history with my dad and stuff, I have an immediate attachment to like natural systems and an awareness that we're part of these natural systems, but we've kind of layered our own culture on top of them. But yeah, we can talk about old growth forests.
Well, last I checked, there's only 2% of forests left that are old growth in Nova Scotia, so it's not looking good over on this side.
95% of the original forest, this is an enormous landmass, has been cut in the last 150 years.
Yeah. People don't realize that it's all been cut.
Well, this is an ecosystem, first of all, which is like at least 13 to 15,000 years old, and has lasted through fires, floods, because it's a complex, interrelated ecosystem. And the mycelium underneath, and I've read Suzanne Simard's Finding the Mother Tree, a fantastic book. And she basically just said what the indigenous people have been saying for years. But what happens is,
you guys fucked it up.
Yeah. I don't want to get too I'm a little passionate about this, and
well, as you should be.
So am I. So go for it.
So they cut down these 500 to 3,000 year old monster trees that have complex root systems, all interconnected, and the trees talk to each other. And but they did it like 30 years ago. It was the War in the Woods, like a sound where they just were clear cutting, just raising complete. And so after that, they changed their style of logging. So what they do now is they do a patch here, a patch there, a patch there, and they wait a little bit. It grows up, and then they come in again and do a patch there, patch there. And so it's basically the same thing,
just slower.
And
section cutting, yeah.
And it, for a lot of BC culture, it has been, the way that people make money, and it's so entrenched into the economy here. but like you can just drive across Vancouver Island, south of where I live, and to Port Renfrew, and it's just like miles and miles of clear cuts and a few second growth, and maybe there's like a little glade there, or Avatar Grove. There's like some grove that someone protected, but in order to protect that, they had to sort of sell it. Anyway, so the BC government is still handing out logging permits for trees, which we need for the ecosystem, we need for the weather, we need for the water, we need for the air, that are like ancient.
And people don't realize how the old growth trees are micro ecosystems of their own. Like each individual tree becomes a micro ecosystem in its saddle. Like it's so important and so unique that you can't get these things back.
At a certain age, I think it's like about 125 years or 60 years, there's another level of ecosystem which sort of appears that only exists in that little level. Another one after that. But the thing is, people say, "Oh, you can plant and regrow forests." Yeah, but the speed at which we're cutting, you can't plant an old growth ecosystem.
No.
What they do is they do tree farms, and they plant the money trees, and they do things like they spray it with glyphosate, and they paint glyphosate, which is like a horrific cancer-causing chemical, which is in everything now. I mean, the way we do it has to change, I mean, and there's so little left, and especially with the forest fires and the floods that we're having in BC in the last couple of years. You can attribute some of the terribleness of the forest fires to the fact that you've got a whole bunch of trees which are the same size, like they're maybe 60 years old because they cut there, and they're all the same thing, and there's no deciduous trees in between them to buffer it. Old growth forest, you can find like huge burn scars on an old growth tree that are like 100 or 200 years old, which tells you those forests are resilient to forest fire. Anyway, so I'm gonna ramble on.
No, this is very interesting.
Well,
actually, I want to read that book. Too. Actually, that sounds like a really cool, really cool read.
I mean, we just had Yellowknife, and we've just had Kelowna is still on fire. There are 350 wildfires burning in British Columbia. Half of them are out of control.
Yeah,
there's a bad one
that was here a couple months ago.
That was the first one in my entire life that I remember ever happening here. There being a wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Me too.
Well, I've always kind of been of the, I consider myself a bit of a stoic, but I also feel like,
Yeah, me too.
But the idea also, I want to say nihilist, maybe more of a realist, but in the way that, like, the way
existential dread is constantly on Andre's mind.
That is constantly a constant struggle. But the way George Carlin used to say that, like, I'm not worried about the world will be fine. We might, but it'll shake us off, and it'll be fine. Yeah. And I hope it doesn't come to that. But the older I get, the more I feel as though it's heading that way. So
yes, it's yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's that way of looking at it, which I have as well. And
I still don't think that stops us from taking responsibility and having to try to change. And
no.
Like, we all have to do what we can to try to make things better. But
as a biodiversity guy, I also don't agree with the root of that statement. Where I'm like it's not like that the world will just shake us off and it'll be fine. It's just like by then we'll have lost everything and it'll never.
Well, it'll be something different, but it'll just be something different without us. Yeah,
true.
Biodiversity is the key thing with it all.
It really is. I mean, that's definitely my professional pursuit.
Well, spiraling through everything that came further on in your career as far as roles go. I mean, I see you're in Jennifer's Body, which is a movie I don't think people appreciate for what it actually is.
Right.
But what was Fringe like? Was that an interesting experience? Because I was a big fan of that series.
Yeah. Fringe tried to hire me many times, but I'd done another show on Fox, and Fox kept on saying, no, he was in this other show.
Oh, really? Why do they care about that?
Yeah, it's a different show. That's weird.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Was it Human Target? Was that the one you did before?
Human Target. Yeah.
Okay. Which is the guy that was in Fringe was in that show too, right?
Also didn't get. The thing is, like, you stay in this business long enough, you get a lot of silver medals that nobody ever sees, right?
Yeah.
You see the gold medals, and no, it's a fun show, and Yeah, I mean, I just had a couple of scenes, I think, as a professor in that.
Yeah, that's cool.
You were in another couple of my favorite shows as well, which was the Stargate shows,
Oh,
SG-1 Atlantis. And did I read that you went to school with Amanda Tapping?
no, we took acting class together in Toronto. This is before,
cool.
yeah, and so we did like scenes together, and we were the same agency, and we hung out a little bit, and she's great. I mean, now she does a lot of directing, and a few years ago, she basically told them to get me for a part, and and
Nice.
then, yeah, it was nice.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I noticed like a lot of the things in your body work here is a lot of genre type stuff, but I guess that's sort of mostly what's been coming through in film work a lot lately with SMG. I see you were the king of the fourth dimension there, Supergirl.
oh yeah,
King Mixoplex, King or whatever.
yeah.
And all those sort of roles. Like you had roles in Supernatural and all these sort of things as well. So you've sort of been through the gamut of the genre actor.
Well, a lot of stuff that shoots in Vancouver, frankly.
Well, and it's also a testament to how malleable you are as an actor with taking on all these different roles in different places, different accents, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
cool.
It's kind of like.
So did you just
like juice? That's what I like. What was the question?
So did you just start acting in Toronto and then eventually move that to Vancouver?
No, I did a very little bit in Toronto before I went to train properly in England. Right, and I was there in England for about 10 years. I did a bunch of theater, a bunch of not doing anything, and a bunch of, and then a couple of. I did a thing for the BBC where I play Peter Capaldi. You know Peter Capaldi?
I sure do. He's my
Doctor
favorite
Who,
Doctor
yeah.
Who.
Well, he was too from this amazing movie he did with Burt Lancaster called Local Hero. And
I was gonna say, and that's a big movie too for me. Local Hero is an amazing movie.
But there was this show back in the 80s called Shadow of the Noose, and Peter Capaldi was playing the main baddie of this episode, the one who was guilty of the terrible crime, who goes on trial for it. And and I get my agent says, "Do you do a Scottish accent?" I went, I can try. And in those days, they didn't give you sides, right?
Just one moment. You guys continue on. I just have to step away here.
That's right. You go in there. You go in there and you chat with the director, and it was all like, and so I went in there and I did this sort of like very slightly. I'd listened to him in Local Hero, and I was like, I'm sort of channeling that sort of very light Scots accent, and so I was talking for a while, and
Good one.
And it wasn't that good then. And he goes, the director, which Matthew Robinson, his name was, he goes, "So, heart of Scotland, are you from?"
Oh.
And that was when I was like, oh, do I lie and dig deeper, or what do I do? So I just said, actually, I'm from Toronto, and I kept the accent up, Toronto and in Canada. I'm Canadian, but I just wanted to talk like this so I could, Anyway, so then I got the part. I was like, oh, and so I said, can I get in touch with Peter, because I want to hear his voice. And so they connected us, and Peter phoned me and said, well, why don't you come over for tea? And I said, okay, fine. So I was at his place, and he, he gave me this little cassette tape, and not only had he done my lines in his voice and accent, but he did about 5 other Scottish accents, reading classic.
Oh my God.
Slab Boys and like all these like really like the Glaswegian.
Here's the Glaswegian one, yeah. Like,
and so it was like about 15 minutes long, and I always remember how it started. Hello, Adrian. This is Peter, and I tell this story, and like about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was like clearing out junk in my basement, and I picked up this cassette tape, and I was like, oh my. And I went,
wow.
I got a player, and this is like, it must be like 30 years old. And I put it in,
wow.
and I just pressed play, and I heard, hello, Adrian, this is Peter. Stop, and I don't want to do anything with that. I just want it to be there. And I tried to use a special machine to get it, so I could get an audio of it, because it was so brilliant and such a good resource. But that told me that taught me a lot about the generosity of actors. You know, that you think, oh, they don't have time, they're, it's a big ask, but the ones who are really great, now Peter is great. I mean, he's a great actor. They tend to have this kind of generosity about them, and especially in England. And that was what I learned from that. Like, he didn't just say, oh, here's your lines, all right, kid, but he gave me all this resource of other things. He spent time.
Yeah, I've heard that before, and it just makes sense. I mean, if you're working on, especially on the same project together, it's just like, why not try to enhance everyone?
That's right. Yeah.
Have
we lost Andre?
Well, we may have lost Andre, but we can carry on. So I did notice they brought you back as Nightcrawler for the video game as well.
Oh yeah, that was there was just like a lot of grunts and shouting as the Nightcrawler. Yes, I barely remember it, but yes, I do remember that. Was it called? Which game was that?
It was Mutant Academy 2.
Mutant Academy 2. Right.
Yeah. What system was that on? I don't think I had that. I did wonder. Well, you know what? I asked this to everyone we have on. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
God, that's tough. I want to say, flying. Oh, hello, baby.
Oh, say hi to Adrian. Hi. She's a bit of a camera hog.
Oh, hey. I think flying. Flying.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Just to travel.
Yeah, just to like we all have those flying dreams, and I think it's sort of interesting that we have flying dreams, don't you think? That there's
I don't remember my dreams very often, so it's the thing. But it is interesting, though. It does seem to be a common theme with
somewhere in our psyche, there's something which says this is what flying feels like. That's kind of weird.
I'm not even an airplane guy myself.
Oh, okay. Oh, you did. Okay. So, I don't even know what the baby's name is, but
this is little Ursula, and she doesn't seem to be very happy. We'll deal with that, won't we, honey? I know.
Speaking of Ursula, I watched Little Mermaid again.
Yeah.
I think I figured out what the single best vocal performance of all time is, and it's got to be Pat Carroll as Ursula in The Little Mermaid. Because if you listen to what she does in the song, in every single line, the way it's like acrobatic, it's entertaining, it's playful. Anyway, I wasn't asked that question, but you said Ursula, which made me think of that. Now I can't.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because I 100% agree. I mean, I wouldn't say I necessarily 100% name my daughter after that character, but if she's 100% my favorite Disney villain, and the songs are so good, like "Poor Unfortunate Souls" is such a good song.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, there we go. We got rid of the baby there. I love you, honey. That's a 1-month-old baby, and really, she was 3 weeks early, so she should only be a week old, really. But yes, that's baby Ursula.
I'd like to tell you it goes fast.
Yeah.
It does go fast, but it also goes slow. The slow stuff is like what you just had to go through. You get like 28 years down the road, and suddenly they're all grown-ups, and you're like, oh, how did that happen?
Well, we have a 2.5-year-old too, so I'm starting to see that, because especially now that I compare the two, you just look over at the other one and you're like, wait a minute, you were a little potato just like a minute ago, weren't you? But it's joyous, and all of the other stuff too.
What else can we talk about?
We got lots to talk about. Okay. What do I got here? I noticed you did a couple of movies with Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have a
He's
interesting Steven Seagal story.
I'm not going to tell a Steven Seagal.
That's fair. That's fair.
In private, I might, but no, he's a very interesting guy. I mean, he's had this career, and that's what he like. Yeah, I had to play his. I was his boss for a bunch of those movies. We shot them like a series, and yeah, I can't tell you this. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. So
sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, the story that I would tell in a bar, maybe, but
okay.
I won't tell it here. No,
next time I'm in Vancouver.
Yeah, okay. And he's he's a very interesting guy, and he's had this incredible career, and and he's just very unusual, and he's got a following. And I got to sort of, me and the rest of the cast got to sort of follow along and play in that sandbox. That was cool. And I got to play a sheriff. Like, I tend to play kind of more like maybe lighter characters, and I got to play a sheriff. And so I got to play serious and American and all that. And my job every episode was to basically come in and tell him what the assignment was, and for him to tell me that's not what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do my own thing. And you come in here, and then that was my lame Steven Seagal impersonation.
That was pretty good. That's a good Steven Seagal accent. It's just another accent, right?
Right, yeah.
I wonder though, if you have a favorite acting role you've ever done.
I usually say,
or a type of character you like to play, like a favorite.
I like to play characters that are kind of intense, and have some kind of, like, if it's a bad guy, I want you to feel bad for him. Like, okay. I learned a lesson watching actors like Snape.
Kurt Russell. No, Snape. Not Kurt Russell.
Anyway, but
yeah.
The best bad guys. It's like in
Alan Rickman, right?
Alan
Is that
Rickman.
what we're thinking? Yeah.
He plays this evil character, but at the core of it is this deep sadness, and so you go, oh, what So I like to play complicated characters. If he's a good guy, well, what is the darkness? If he's a bad guy, So I get to play a lot of bad guys because my eyes are a certain color, and I have like the cheekbones, and my I joke that I have a bitch face, and but I
get your roles.
I find that fascinating and interesting. Somebody that has some kind of passion, or like with Haytham, it was like he was a true believer in the colonial way, in the Templar way, true believer, and I like playing that edge. But I usually tell people, what's my favorite role? My favorite role is the next one. Because
I think you're not the first person to say that on this show.
Probably not. You say a lot of it.
Yeah, but it's a good point. And I noticed, though, from pretty much the time you started, you stayed pretty busy. Like, we've been looking at a fair amount of IMDb credits lists in the last couple of years, and yours is just very consistent. So is that like a credit to your agent or the scene in Vancouver? Of course, your own talents.
Well, it's a sheer luck and good fortune, and I've been through like 9 months with nothing before, and then something comes out of the blue, which kind of sweeps me off, and which is actually the truth for, I think, most actors. But it's funny because I haven't thought of it like that. For me, it's always been about what's in front of my nose, what's the next opportunity. While I may have like career goals, which are mostly to do with how I'm developing as an actor, but that it's been like incremental steps, for me to get a place where I'm called in for stuff, or that I'll be seen for stuff. And then it's just like sheer luck, But I have more, like any actor will tell you, they have more failures, and I call them silver medals, when you get really close to something and you're just like, you're salivating and then it's gone. And they've pinned you for this, or you're on the short list, and you go, okay. But
silver medals, it's a good one. It's a good way to look at it, though. It's like,
but
almost,
Yeah.
And it's still like that. You went through the motions of it, and you went through the exercise of that role.
Yeah. There's no podium for you. There's no like prize money. You can't sell it to anything. But it does mean that people will call you in again. Right? It's I think I've just been lucky, and I set my mind to it, and I worked on my skills, and I eventually got hooked up with the right people. But young me, 20s, 30s me, were like, I was struggling away. It's hard to get even seen for stuff. I'm kind of bloody minded, that I'm saying, well, what else are you going to do? Why don't you go back to school? No, I need to do this. And it ended up looking like a career with ever many it's funny because people will say, oh, so you're an actor, what have you done? And I'll look at them, and I have to go, how old are they?
What do they know?
Do they look like more a classical person? Are they Western person? But I think I can remember about 5, like on the spot, I can remember maybe 5 things that I've done. And then the rest is like, I don't know. Unless you bring it up, like, oh yes, you were in such. Oh right, yes, I can remember that now. But like, it's not like I don't carry my resume around with me in my head. Like, it's I have to look to see, because you do a job, it's done, right?
It's like somebody asked me for a musical recommendation. I can't think of anyone. I'm like, I don't know, like Robert Johnson. I can't think of anything else. Like, but. It's hard off the top of your head. I wonder about the next one. Because you say that's your favorite role. The next one, what's a role you would love to play? Whether it be a British role or perhaps whatever.
I think I'd love to do the Scottish play, the
Macbeth.
Yes.
Oh wait. I'm not supposed to say it. I'm not an actor. I can say it, right?
No. I
didn't just curse you, did I? Damn,
no, you didn't.
Sorry.
I'd like.
I knock on wood.
I think Hamlet is past now. Like, I can't. There's no Hamlet. But I think I'd like to do like a big, full-on Shakespeare. But whether or not I can afford the time, etc. Stratford has their own game.
What role in the play We Shall Not Name again?
Oh, the main one.
Yeah.
One of the ways I entertain myself when I'm in between jobs, as they say, is like, I'll go, oh, what Shakespeare monologue don't I know? And one of the first ones I picked up was, if it were done when 'tis done, then it were done quickly. And so I just like learn them, because it keeps the machine oiled and going, and it has you react, so you're not just waiting for an audition, so that suddenly you're having to wind everything up. In between those times, I'm like keeping everything going. I teach occasionally, and that's what I tell students to do. You got to keep it going.
Where do you teach?
Oh, I mean, there's a few studios in Vancouver. I used to teach here at a school like 20 years ago. But then I kind of gave it up because of the running of the school, the bookkeeping and the selling the classes. Well, I found it more than I could handle with everything else was going on. Plus, I started to work more. But now I do those classes in various schools in Vancouver, which they call me up. Can you come and do like a workshop with our final year students? It's 3-4 hours, and I go, yep, that's my jam. planning a class, getting scripts for everybody, hustling them all into the class, telling them they're going to be stars. That's not how I can't do that. But I do
coach part.
I can do the coaching. I don't coach.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if you can. That sometimes I question whether you can teach someone to act, because it's kind of like the stuff that I've learned the most from is watching great actors and then to internalize it. It's just like when we learn how to talk and walk, we're watching the people do it, and I don't know. I mean, there's certainly, yes, you can teach someone vocal skills. You can teach someone you can teach someone an accent. You can teach someone movement. You can teach someone how to breathe properly. You can teach someone, but the actual acting thing, that thing which I pour our identity into a person's situation and then live their life for them in a story. I don't know if you can.
I think that's a good question to ask, because if it's anything like music, which I assume it is, it's just another expression of art.
Yeah.
Kind of similar ones in that regard too. With music, I find people either have it or they don't. And you could probably, like you say, you can teach someone to play a piano.
Yeah.
But people can either just play music or they can't, I find. Yeah. And it at least with a an ease or an ease of aptitude anyway. I suspect acting's the same.
Well, you get little black and white notes on a white piece of paper, and you put those into your system, and you spit them out as if they mean something, with expression and feeling and timing
well, I should ask you, even since he's not here, Andre's favorite question, which is, what's your favorite movie? If you have to name more than one, go ahead. Don't sweat too much. It's a hard question, especially for actors.
Yeah, I think it's problematic. Now, there's a couple of them I can think of. One of them is The Lives of Others. It's a German movie.
Okay.
About, I don't know, 10 or 20 years ago, the lead actor won an Oscar and then promptly died of stomach cancer. But it takes place before and after the Berlin Wall falls. And it's the central performance is a guy who's listening in on people. So a lot of the movie is just him reacting. And it's one of my favorite movies. It's problematic now, but Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean's and Peter O'Toole's performance in it,
yeah. But the cinematic scope and stuff. Even some movies that are problematic now.
The Ruling Class, also a Peter O'Toole movie.
Okay.
I think it's Lindsay Anderson directed it. I think, but it's a very they tend to be older ones.
I'm the same way. I have a movie podcast too, and I'm the guy who brings the old movie picks to the to the party. My theory is that they're better, kind of. I find it's hard for me to get into a new movie, as a lot of them are kind of just, I don't know what it is. It's whether it's just the need for content or what it is, but it's hard to get grabbed. But not to say there aren't movies that do that or TV shows that do that, but I just find you have to weed through it a lot more. To get to the meat. Yeah. These days.
There's so much to binge on now too. Have you seen Casablanca lately?
Not lately, no.
I just watched it again after like 40 years, and it was like, it's a beautiful movie. I mean, just black and white, and the way that you shadow and light, and the performances, and just So
play it again, Sam.
Yeah, play it, Sam.
Yeah, play it, Sam.
It doesn't actually say. That's one of those things.
It's one of those things. Yeah. It's like how they always mess up what Spider-Man says. It happens everywhere. Well, what did you think about being brought back for the new show? Did you ever think that was going to happen? Like that this cartoon you were on in 1990?
I cannot.
Oh.
I cannot comment. I cannot say anything.
The mouse pointers are. Oh, I see it. Yep. All right. The mouse is pointing a laser through my window right now. I got it.
I mean, there's been a couple of articles that have put my name in there.
There have.
But I do remember I when I moved to Vancouver, I had a new voice agent, and about, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, I'm saying, can you maybe get me in for some voice work and stuff? And he goes, yeah. And then there was this animated thing that I'd heard about, and I said, well, just tell him that I was the voice of the Nightcrawler in the X-Men. And he goes, nobody cares about something from 25 years ago.
Oh, that they do, though. That was a good thing for you to say to him, for sure. So did that do it?
Did that? No, I didn't get it. And, but
it should have.
Let's just say his a couple of years ago, his tone changed, and I go for a lot more stuff now. And the Lego Jurassic World stuff Jurassic Park stuff is fun too.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, sorry about that,
guys.
Yeah,
right there, Andre.
Yeah, we had my sink is clogged, and I put Drano down it a while ago, and then it appears like some of it might have been leaking out the bottom of the pipe underneath.
Drano is bad for your pipes.
And the environment, might I add.
Well, if it's any consolation, it didn't help. So,
no.
But
just
anyway,
get one of those things that fires the air down there. That's all you'll ever need.
It's one of those two. It's like two. I'm not getting into this, but it's like there's two drains that connect. There's two drains that connect under the sink like that, and then go down. So like I don't know how those work when there's another way for the stuff to go out. So anyway, my cat might have got into it, so we had to make sure the cat was okay. Oh, jeez. Yeah, she's okay. It's all good.
Kitties on this show. We
sure
do.
Kitties. But do you have a preferred? I guess one of my final questions. I want to keep you all night, but do you have a preferred sort of do you like theater more than film acting? Do you have a preference when it comes to the two?
I like it all for different reasons. I really enjoyed performance capture because it kind of you can play to a tight close-up. You don't have a camera there indicating how you should play, right? You just have like 20 cameras on each corner, like all of them $20,000 worth of technology in this volume, and they'll tape out the stage that you're at, and where you're on top of a roof here, and you're looking down at this soldiers down there, so you want to be careful, and so you have to kind of like Roger Rabbit style project what you're looking at. And they can actually capture quite subtle stuff now, even 10 years ago. And so at the same time as you can play something quite broadly as if it's a big wide shot. And you as an actor have a lot of control over the tone of the scene. So I love performance capture for that.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. That's very interesting.
Well, I mean, I was doing it for a while, and I started playing with it. I wonder if I can make this an over the shoulder too. And like I was like shooting it in my head, filming it in my head. So I like, just as an experiment, I think on the rooftop scene. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where he's like, "So what do your people want?" And he goes, "Order, purpose, direction, no more than that." And so I thought, I played it looking away from him. And then I'm gonna, this is an overshot too, and then it's gonna turn, and they're gonna see over me, and like I blocked it out in my head. And
the final product was the same.
What's that?
Was the final product the same? What you envisioned?
I went, oh yeah, there, and I also toned, like I started playing with how to like vary my performance. It was just like total experimentation, completely playful. I wasn't afraid I was going to lose my job, and I wasn't trying to. I was just like, it was just a new medium. It was like the fun of being in this new medium. But I think I like film because you can kind of laser focus things and do like have real subtle internal thoughts. I love stage because you get that connection with an audience. I love voiceover because you can play with the space around the mic and the tone in there. I mean, I love it all. I would do any of those things for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Well, it's awesome that you get to do that, something you love so much.
It is. It is. I've been, like I said earlier, I've been really very fortunate.
Yeah.
So, Andre, well, you weren't here, and I didn't have you here to look after me. I said the name of the play that shall not be named, and
oh
I
no,
asked
actually, that's
Adrian,
theater, isn't it?
what?
You can only not do that in a theater, isn't it?
I'm not in
Oh, is that?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I thought
It's
I was
only
gonna
in the theater you can't
die
say.
or
You're okay,
something.
Adrian.
Okay,
No,
that's
you'll be
funny.
all right.
And I also asked him your favorite question, what his favorite movies are.
Oh, what was his answer?
Well, they're already in the recording, but I can.
Yeah, go for it again. Andre will know the movies, and I didn't, other
The
than
movie is
Casablanca.
the movie is troublesome now, but Lawrence of Arabia, most
Yep.
Oh, I knew that one.
this
Yeah, of
performance, and there's and The Lives of Others, which is a German movie from about 15 years ago, and I think the lead actor from that won an Oscar or something like that, or got nominated anyway.
Yeah, I know that one. I haven't seen it, but I know it.
Yeah, and another one is another Peter O'Toole one is The Ruling Class,
Oh, yes.
and there's one I didn't mention. There's an actor called Klaus Maria Brandauer, who was in Out of Africa with Meryl Streep, but years ago he did a Hungarian movie playing this actor in Nazi Germany, and then the Nazis were taking over, and he ends up, and it's called Mephisto, and
I've heard of this one. I've
yeah,
never seen it, but I've heard of it.
yeah, and just how, I mean, if I went back to watch his performance now, I'd probably think what a ham, but I how ebullient and how. Yeah.
Well, you've named movies that sort of center around almost a lead performance, like a captivating lead performance. So is that what draws you towards film, as far as like favorite, as far as the like one particular role, or the actor themselves? I guess their performance.
That's a combination. I mean, anything David Lean with those incredible shots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been on a bit of. I'm directing a play that I'm also in. I'm co-directing it that we just started rehearsals on, and it's a Kurt Vonnegut play. And I'm a huge fan of his books. And they made a film adaptation of it when it came out in the 70s with Rod Steiger playing the part that I'm playing. So I've been on a bit of a Rod Steiger kick lately. I watched The Pawnbroker, which is a heartbreakingly good movie. It's on the Criterion Channel if you have that. It's insanely good. But I've seen quite a few of the things he's been done lately, and I've been a little bit of a kick for him. And I think he's, based on The Pawnbroker alone, I think he's one of the best actors of this generation, bar none. Like, he's so malleable. Like, you watch him in the role that in the play, the Vonnegut adaptation, the movie and the play is called Happy Birthday 1 to June.
Yes.
Yeah. So the main role that I'm playing it in our version, but he played it in the movie version. So I just kind of, I don't usually like to watch this sort of stuff, so I don't want to color my interpretation. But yeah, like I seeing that compared to The Pawnbroker, compared to other things he's been in, The Illustrated Man, or I don't know, Hennessy, or one of those other movies, like he's just so different in everything he's in. I often have to remind myself he's American, because his voice changes, like his accent. He plays an Irishman in Hennessy, and it's so, his accent is so good. It's like it barely misses a step. So
what was the other one? On the Waterfront?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I watched that one recently. Yeah.
And is that one with
Brando's?
Bridge on the River Kwai is a big one I love too, for David Lean.
Sidney Poitier movie where it comes to that the southern town.
Oh, I guess it's Coming to Dinner.
No.
In the Heat of the Night.
In the Heat of the Night. That's it.
Yeah. Call Me Mr. Tibbs.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. No, that's very, very cool. So, Davan, did you get all your questions out?
The other movie I mentioned was that I just watched again because it came up on my screen, was Casablanca.
Oh yes, yeah. I just bought the I collect Blu-rays. I just bought in like 4Ks and stuff. I just bought the newest version of that, and the Maltese Falcon, which is always one of my favorites. Yeah. I'm a big I like Dashiell Hammett. I've only read a few of his books, but from the ones I've read, I've loved. So there's a movie. Do you ever see the movie Brick? It was by Rian Johnson. It's like his first movie before he did like Looper and Knives Out and all those other things. It's got it's early 2000s. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it, and it's based loosely on a Dashiell Hammett novel called Red Harvest. And it's sort of it's about a kid in high school. He's almost like a private detective in a modern high school setting, but all the language is written like turn of the century detective story. So like all the teenagers talk like they're in a book, like a Dashiell Hammett book from the. It's very interesting. It's very good.
Yeah.
You're thinking of Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, no, that's something else entirely. Something else entirely.
Most of the Coen Brothers movies. Yeah,
they can do no wrong. I'm interested to see the new one. Because they split up, right? Like they're doing movies without each other right now. And there's one that Ethan or Joel Coen is coming out, which looks like kind of a teen crime thing. It looks very different from anything else they've ever done. At least it's marketed that way. That I'm very interested to see what it's going to be. It looks like a far cry from, the Miller's Crossing or the Big Lebowski or any of those sort of things.
Miller's Crossing.
Talk about performances. John Turturro in that is Gabriel Byrne too, but like John Turturro as like the Weasley guy that you just hate it instantly. He's so good. Yeah, fantastic. Well, final question, I guess, before you go is me and my wife are going to be in BC in October. So what should we do? What's the one thing you'd suggest we do over in? We're going to be, I think, on the island and in Vancouver. So traveling around a bit.
Go and see Avatar Grove.
Avatar Grove.
Avatar Grove. If you're on the island, there's lots of things. It's quite big, the island. Go and see Tofino.
Tofino, okay.
I mean, it's like one of the longest, incredible beaches in the world, and
I think she has that written down already as one of the things that she wanted to do. So,
yeah.
All right. Avatar Grove. All right.
Yeah, those are the things I can think of off the top of my head. If I think of anything else, I'll send you a message.
Sure. Sounds good. I'm excited to go. I've never been, so.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh wow, yeah, you're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Cool. Well, Davan, should we let him go?
Fine.
I think so.
Well, thank you so much for being on, Adrian. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
That was fun.
It really was.
Yeah,
enjoy being on or not being on the new X-Men the 97 show.
There's so much conflicting knowledge. I obviously don't say anything because I don't want to. You mentioned your NDA agreements and before, and I was thinking
lasers already came through the window while you were
when he was talking about the NDA that he had when he did the video game. I was like, I imagine what the Disney one must look like. Probably a dude that just stands around you 24/7 to make sure you don't say anything. Like on the wiki
comes with a person, that just fought.
On the wiki for the show does list several, like Lawrence Spain, who we had in the show before, and yourself and a few others, saying that they're in the show in other roles, but that's about as far as it says. So
right,
yeah, no need to confirm or deny because it's Wikipedia and anybody can add to that.
I have not. My face hasn't changed.
Nope. Excellent, good.
I've gotten nothing.
That's right. Good. That's right. That's right.
All right.
Perfect. Well,
thanks a lot for joining us, Adrian.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks, Adrian. Have a good one.
You guys take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.